guys, welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. So if you're not familiar with my content, I do all things DIY for your house and home to elevate your space on a budget. And that's really important to me because honestly, you shouldn't have to sacrifice style just because of the price tag. So we're doing things all DIY here to make sure that you have the space of your dreams. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when I post again. I promise it will be worth it. But without further ado, let's talk about today's DIYs. So today's DIYs, we're going to be doing textured vases. I actually got thrifted vases that I'm going to be putting in my living room because we're going to be making it over. Don't tell my husband. I'm going to be making that over soon. My husband's just going to deal with it. We have 4 different DIY textured vases for you guys to try out today. So I'm super excited for you guys to see them. But without further ado, let's get into it. So first up is probably the most simplest of DIYs. That doesn't require you to do any mixing or anything like that. All you need are 2 things of spray paint. So for the first DIY textured vase, we are going to be doing a stone textured vase using this vase and these spray paints.
Alright, so this stone textured vase is so easy to make. As you can see, I started off with a stone texture. I didn't realize that there was no pigment to it, so I had to go back over with the actual base coat of smoky beige. I got this and the stone textured spray paint from Home Depot. So what you want to do is take your base coat and lightly coat the outside of the vase. When you're spray painting, make sure you're far enough away so you're not too close to it, as well as just making sure you're going in short spurts. Don't do long spurts or stay in one spot too long. Also, because I was spraying in a box, it was rather difficult, so I actually used this stick that I just found outside to help me lift it up so I could spray the bottom of it. It worked like a charm though. So now I'm going in with my stone texture. Honestly, I waited until it was completely dry. I'm not sure if you had to do that. I guess I should have read the directions. But I just decided to kind of wait until it was completely dry anyways before putting on the stone texture. Again, make sure that you're not focused on one spot for too long. A difficult task for yours truly, but heed my advice and don't do what I do. Just try to get it as even as possible and just get it to the desired look that you like.
So the next DIY textured vase is actually one that I've recently seen just kind of exploding on YouTube, and I'm really excited to try it out. So this is the Dirt Textured Vase. It's so cool. So for this, all we're gonna need is some spray paint and some dirt. So just go outside and get some dirt, and wash your hands afterwards because my hands were pretty gross.
Alright, so for the Dirt Textured Vase, I just decided to use a glossy black spray paint that I got at Home Depot. Honestly, I wasn't too thrilled with the glossiness, so I'm really glad that the dirt actually took away the shine of it. Oh, and this is when I realized that I picked probably the windiest day to actually do my spray painting. Let me show you something. This was the wind that day. Also, this one little area just reminds me of a B-rated scary movie. They didn't have enough money for an actual good backdrop. But back to the DIY, my stick is making an appearance again, so I'm just using it to move my vase somewhere safe from the wind. So check out my dead potted plant that we'll be using the soil from. So I just took a handful and started coating the outside of the vase. The trick is for this DIY, you want to make sure that the paint doesn't dry completely. You want it about 80 to 90% to actually coat it. So if you're using dirt from outside, I would just say just to make sure that you get everything out of it that is not actual dirt. Because honestly, you don't want dead leaves and twigs to be coating your vase. Just the dirt. Once it's dry, just make sure you give it a good wipe down before you put it in your house.
For our third DIY textured vase, we are going to be doing a clay textured vase. So this vase was actually something that I just saw on Pinterest, and I thought, wow, that'd be really cool to recreate and kind of do a dupe of. So that's where this idea came from. All you need is basically clay of your color and liking, and then paint.
Okay, so for this clay textured vase, I'm actually using clay that I actually got from the Dollar Tree. Just want to put it out there that I do not recommend this. Oh my gosh, it was so hard to actually work through. Granted, I didn't have a rolling pin or anything, so I was just using my hands, but it was definitely tough. I would definitely suggest using air dry clay if you got it, but flatten out as much clay as possible to cover the surface. Using those pieces, just try to apply it to the vase. Now the trick here is that you want actually a thick coat. I know you normally would actually make it as thin as possible, but for the clay, you want it thick enough that when you actually carve it, you don't see the actual vase below it. And then just as you're trying to wrap it and cover it, try to smooth it out as much as possible. I've actually seen people use water to kind of smooth it out, and I tried that, but it did nothing. I honestly think it's just because of the clay that I was working with. I definitely tried my best to kind of smooth out the rim as well as the neck of the vase and then all around. Once you smoothed it out, it's on to carving. Using a small wooden dowel, I just used it to start carving lines and making a pattern that I liked. As you can see here, I was just trying my best to draw diagonal lines, which is very hard to do when you're using a rounded surface. But my inspiration for this was basically those geometric walls that everyone is so crazy about. I want to do one, but I don't have a wall space at this point, so a vase it is. So I drew my diagonal lines, I did perpendicular diagonal lines, and then I did lines across to show just a difference in the pattern that I was doing. Honestly, there was no rhyme or reason here. I was just drawing what I liked visually, so definitely take that into account when you're recreating this. Do what you like and what you visually think would look good. Also, when you're carving, there are going to be some excess pieces of the clay that come up as a result, so just pull them away and put them off to the side or kind of push them down in the other areas. So once you have your pattern carved, you're going to move on to painting inside the lines. Now I will say I used that wooden dowel again, and honestly that wasn't a good idea for me, mostly because it didn't create an even coat that I was looking for. So there are spots where it is definitely heavier, and then lighter where I didn't put as much paint. So again, if you're going to recreate this, my tip to you would actually be to use a very small brush, paint brush, something that you can actually get in between the lines. But again, just go around the vase completely and make sure you fill in all the lines that you've created. And then once you've done that, you're basically all done with it.
Last but not least, we have our DIY textured vase that is made from just paint and baking soda.
Okay, so this DIY vase is super easy. All you need is your desired paint and of course baking soda. So I wanted a light beige, almost like an ivory color, so I'm mixing two colors. I'm mixing white and then a buff beige that I had on hand. And you don't need special paint. You could use acrylic paint. That works perfectly fine. It worked perfectly fine for me, so definitely don't think that you need to get some high-end paint in order to create this. So once I had my desired color, I decided to move on to the baking soda. So now I've seen many different people say different ratios. What I always do is a 1-to-1 ratio. So equal parts paint to equal parts of the baking soda. Now the consistency you want is going to be like a frothiness. I always say the frothiness of a Wendy's Frosty. And if you don't know what it is, I apologize. Just get it to the best of your ability to kind of like a melted down milkshake. So once you've got the right texture, just start painting your vase. So you don't have to super smooth with the brush strokes. It can be uneven and everything like that. I definitely like my baking soda textured vases a little bit more grainy look. So on my first coat, I always do it as even, but I go back in with the second coat and make it much heavier and thicker. So just glob it on and roughly smooth it out. Now, the texture I created on my vase is just a personal preference. I've seen other people kind of create a smooth surface to make it look more ceramic, but I liked mine a little bit more chunkier and kind of like built up. So you'll see that in a second, but just make sure you coat it evenly, and you'll definitely want to do a second coat of this. So this is what it looks like after my second coat. It's not completely dry, but I definitely like the texture of it versus something smoother. To me, the brush strokes just make it unique.
Today, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these DIY textured vases, and if you have, definitely make sure you give it a like and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already. I'm really happy with the way all of these turned out. I really think they look amazing and definitely more high-end than what they were looking like originally. But yes, thank you so much, and I can't wait for the next one, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.